Thanks, sir. Well done.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am Jay Hall, and with me today is Adam Johnson. As Rusty referred to, on January 6th of this year, a gentleman by the name of Clay Risen wrote an article published in the New York Times, and it was entitled, "Led by Cult Bourbons, Distillers Dream of a Napification of Kentucky." So to help me dissect that and analyze that article is Adam Johnson with the Kentucky Distillers Association. But before we get to Adam, can I see a show of hands? Who has heard of Napa? Okay, that's pretty good, right? Now, when you think of Napa, and this is the interactive part of the show, when you think of Napa, what do you think of? And just shout it out to me. Wine. Okay, that's wine. That's good. What else do you think of when you think of Napa? Food, vineyards, so tours. What else? Fire. California. Spas. Okay. Beautiful vistas. Okay. Hospitality. Very good. All right. So what Napa has done is they've taken one thing, wine, and they've turned that into a sense of place. And so what I want to talk to Adam about today, and we're gonna break this down for you, is how do we, that's what I want us to walk away with today, is how do we create that same sense of place for visitors to Kentucky that want that unique, authentic experience, and I know you hate that word authentic, but authentic experience on the Bourbon Trail. So, Adam, thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's go ahead and dig into it and get some perspective on Napa. The Napa Valley is 30 miles long, and at its widest point, it's 5 miles wide. So it's a very small plot of land, but there's over 400 wineries in that small confined space. How does that relate to the Bourbon Trail?
Well, first, thanks for having me, and I apologize for not bringing bourbon for everybody. That's typically what we do. I should have set that up on the break, but yeah, I mean, Napa is so concentrated, as you said. We don't have quite that luxury. We have a little bit of the Amber Triangle we call the Louisville, Lexington, Bardstown area, but with the Kentucky Bourbon Trail experiences, that's 40 stops roughly spread out over almost 1,000 miles. We just released the new Craft Tour Passport, and we actually mapped that out, and it's 871 miles to complete the Craft Tour. Wow. So we don't quite have that luxury, but we try to use that to our advantage because what we found in our surveys, it's the scenic drive, it's the beauty of the rolling hills. That's actually what people almost remember most when they come and visit us. So the scenic beauty is really one of our greatest assets to our experiences, because where in Napa you may miss your winery and you can turn around in another winery's driveway, we don't quite have that luxury. So we really try to take the advantage of selling Kentucky as a whole experience and the whole drive, and it's more of an adventure more than just a stop along the way.
Yeah, and I like that. But with that comes some challenges because it's so spread out. I would imagine there are some infrastructure issues, and not specifically roads and bridges and things like that, but Wi-Fi signal and cell service.
Sure.
And signage. How are we addressing those challenges?
Well, how many of you guys have been down to Maker's Mark? Did you have any trouble posting your photos to Instagram? It's a little tricky down there sometimes. So we've taken that, and over the years it's definitely gotten better. I know right around 2011, we really took a huge emphasis on those infrastructure issues and tackled kind of the biggest thing for our visitors is how to get there. So how many of you guys have seen the brown signs along the highway? The state has helped us tremendously with our growth because the signage is so improved. Wi-Fi is something we're definitely trying to improve with all of our kind of more rural distilleries, because that is a challenge. So many of our visitors come in. I can't tell how many people I've taken in my car because they're from Chicago and they thought they could just pick up an Uber in Loretto. That doesn't really work very well. So a lot of our tour guides are very prepared to help our visitors who just assume when they fly in from Los Angeles or wherever that, I can just get a Lyft, piece of cake. So We're always working on things like our transportation infrastructure, Wi-Fi, signage, because we keep growing. We got to help and maintain that growth and make sure our visitors can get around.
And those limited supplemental guide signs, that's the technical term for it in transportation cabinet speak. Those limited supplemental guide signs, those go through approval in the tourism cabinet. And I know that a lot of that, you've had a lot of new distilleries pop up. And there are certain guidelines, they have to meet a certain amount of visitors, in a given year to even qualify to get one of those signs. So hopefully we're addressing that issue. But I also wanted you to talk a little bit about not only infrastructure, physical infrastructure, but people.
Sure.
Can you talk about what is the industry doing to help educate their employees on how to be more hospitable? I think we talked about that.
And I'll start with a story. We took a team of KBT execs out to Napa just to research this a couple years ago.
I didn't get an invite to that.
Yeah, next time we go. I see Kevin Smith back there from Beam. He had some of his team with us. And when we went to Napa Valley, I think the thing that struck almost all of us was from every single person we talked to, whether it was bartender, waiter, transportation, hotel, you name it, they lived and breathed wine. Almost every person we talked to, we felt was an expert, not only on the different appellations, the different styles, what wineries to visit, the hours. It really blew us away. And we took that as a challenge coming back to Kentucky is, yes, we have Southern hospitality, but we really need to get our hospitality sector up with its knowledge of bourbon. And we've really been blessed by help from a number of partners, whether it's Louisville Tourism, helping with their ambassador programs, Moonshine University, our friends there at the Distilled Spirits Epicenter, they created the Statement Thief program. Any Statement Thief certified bourbon source, excellence.
Hey,
you know exactly what I'm talking about. That is the front line of what we see of getting that frontline staff ready to help all those visitors that are coming in, because I guarantee you, Kevin back there would say, and all across our distilleries, the number one challenge they face is getting people, qualified people that are going to be their tour guides, whether it's qualified people on the production side. So in terms of infrastructure challenges, I know when we were talking ahead of time, I would say I hear that time and time again is getting the right people in place, because those are the face of the brand. I do think compared to Napa, we kill it with our tour guides. Time and again, we get emails, whether it's TripAdvisor, saying, oh, our guide so-and-so was great at Barrel House or at Old Forester. Go down the line, and I think that's where we're doing such a great job, but we just need more of that. We need more people because of this growth. So infrastructure-wise, it's people. It's developing that talent to really help Kentucky put its best foot forward on that hospitality front, because my job is actually the easiest in Kentucky, because every person that comes to Kentucky Bourbon Trail, they become an ambassador for Kentucky Bourbon. So they're out doing my job for me, saying, oh, you got to go visit this distillery, and let me do it. How many of you guys have done a bourbon tasting at your home for your guests? Right. There needs to be more hands than that. We got more work to do. So, but that's what I'm saying is, getting those people to kind of help be our ambassador is a huge issue for us.
Yeah. Well, let's break down the average visitor. So the average Napa visitor is highly educated, affluent. It's usually in a group of 4. It's evenly split, 2 men, 2 women. They're about 43 years old. Okay, so that's your average Napa visitor. That demographic has obvious spending power. All right, so they are responsible in Napa for $1.9 billion in spending a year. $1.9 billion. Do we track that similar demographic on the Bourbon Trail?
Yes.
Okay.
And we used
what does that look like?
Yeah, so we used our friends at IQS Research here in Louisville. They did a year-long intercept of our Kentucky Bourbon Trail distilleries, and so we had a third party do it. And our demographic usually falls roughly between the $75,000 to $150,000 median home income. We found that 66 to 67% are coming in groups of 3 and 4, so it's very similar. 41% have incomes above 100,000, and the average Kentucky tourist is 67, so we're higher than the typical Kentucky tourist. We skew about 60-40 male, female. The female demographic's definitely risen over the last couple of years. That's changed a lot since even when I started. And we're seeing 152 cities, 49 states, 2 U.S. territories, and a ton of foreign countries as well. Not as high as we would hopefully want to get, and I'll talk about that later. The part that I get excited about as a tourism professional is 75% are from outside the state. Well, and that's huge. And then 5 out of 6 are staying in hotels and bed and breakfast.
Well,
that's a big number.
Let's go back to that other number. How many are from out of state?
75%.
75% are from out of state. Now, you should compare that to Napa. Napa hosted about 3.8 million visitors last year, primarily from 10 domestic markets, the largest of which, 58%, in fact, were from California. So almost 60% of their visitors were from the state that they reside in, whereas 75% of our visitors are from outside of Kentucky. That's huge. That's all new money, right?
Yeah, that's a big number for us. And the recent law changes that we've had I think will pay even more dividends. I think if you guys have been paying attention and if you've been going to the distilleries for a number of years, one of the biggest changes we've had is you can have by the drink now. So how many of you guys have been to Bardstown and eaten with, say, Chef Newman down there at Maker's Mark or at Bardstown Bourbon Company or any one of our distilleries that have added this cocktail experience? That just adds more to do. It's lengthening that stay. Plus, with more distillery stops, we're just seeing that the average, when I started, Kentucky Bourbon Trail was, let's just say, a weekend trip, 24 hours, 48 hours. Now, we're seeing 4, 5, 6, 7 days. So the economic impact, and you can speak more to that, of what that spinoff can be for that tourism dollar. It's a big number that I think will continue to grow, and that really, I think, gets at this question of this Napification. Because when you go to Napa, yeah, you're going there to drink wine, but it's all that other stuff as well. Right. And so now we're seeing that where, I can have this fantastic meal paired with these bourbons I can't get anywhere else, and then I can stay in these great, small boutique-y places. That to me is where we're getting to, really because of these law changes that have allowed us to do that.
Well, let's talk about we're getting to that, okay? Because we're not there yet, right? One of the issues that we have on the Bourbon Trail is the lack of really boutique lodging. Are we seeing any changes on that front? Do you anticipate opportunities down the road that to create these boutique lodging experiences?
And I think you're seeing that with just here in Louisville. I mean, think about the Omni. Think about Marriott Louisville East, how they're more bourbon-centric. I think back in my hometown, closer to Danville and Harrodsburg, the Beaumont Inn is celebrating its 100th anniversary. They really cater to that high-end bourbon, and that was in the article, the New York Times article. Yeah. So Chateau Bourbon, Missy's place. I mean, there are places that are getting there, but I think you're going to start seeing more of our distilleries dip their toe in the water. I know BBC, and again, as I mentioned, in Bardstown, they're looking at a couple-room hotel that'll kind of cater to that visitor that's coming here for that high-end bourbon experience. We took another contingent out to the Willamette Valley, which I highly recommend, in Oregon, to kind of see how they're doing it. And the hotels that are there will blow you away, how they are specifically catered to that wine aficionado. And I think you're going to start seeing that more in Kentucky to kind of capture that high-end visitor.
So what do we need to do, though, to entice that to happen or help that along? Is that just something that we have to wait on, or is there some kind of switch that we need to turn on, or is there a legislative piece, or what's holding us back?
Well, I think it's I just think it's a little bit of time, and I think the partnerships that we have, whether it's state incentives or working with various departments here throughout the state to help keep recruiting potential properties I think that's an opportunity for us. And I think our distilleries, they've been so focused on getting their visitor centers ready to handle these numbers. They've gotten their production up. I think you've seen that in the news any number of times, how our guys are really doubling down on the capital investment. So I think this is that next wave coming in, because that legislation was huge. To be able to, our guys to capitalize on that kind of cocktail movement, which in some ways really has helped lead to this bourbon boom. And for us to get a piece of that has been just hugely influential. And I think we're just now seeing what that law change has allowed us to do.
Okay, and obviously with the bourbon and the culinary combined, it creates a good synergy. And we discussed a sense of place and how Napa's been able to create that for themselves. And folks here shouted out a lot of the amenities in Napa, the dining and restaurants, shopping, nightlife, scenic vistas, culinary. Are we capitalizing on that same type of ancillary activity in Kentucky, or are we leaving tourism dollars on the table?
I think we're getting there. I think we're definitely seeing that. Again, when I started in 2012, the level of knowledge for a lot of our visitors was not where it is today. Our tour guides have had to really up their game, because so many people coming in are just, they think they know everything, and they really do. And the level of knowledge has really just risen dramatically. So the days of the cursory factory tour are really dropping, and we're really trying to up these high-end experiences. So people want that deep dive. Our Kentucky Bourbon Affair event that we host is hugely successful getting people behind the scenes. They want more. And so that comes with, as you said, those culinary experiences. Think about all the distilleries that have added more of that food component, that dining component, and the more that are coming along the way. These exclusive events that they're having, the better tours, I think those are the things that our guys are doing. And then I think you're seeing things like, as I mentioned, I love Missy's place. How many of you guys have been to Chateau Bourbon over there in Norton Commons? She does a great job. It's a super high-end bourbon-specific bed and breakfast. And I think we're just going to see people kind of trying to duplicate that to capture all these people that are coming in, particularly these groups. I talked to a potential hotel company, and they talked about putting in a number of suites. And I said, absolutely. You're seeing this data of it's not just 2 people. This is 3, 4, 5, 6 groups. We're never going to get to Nashville on the bachelorette parties, I don't think, but we're seeing a huge rise in that. This is a true destination for people to come in and have a great time with their friends. So having the accommodations that can help with that is a big part of capturing some of this dollar that you speak of.
Right.
And I think it's just a huge opportunity out there.
What about the price point difference between an experience like that in Kentucky and an experience like that in Napa? I've got to imagine that the Napa experience, the cost per day spend, I think, is on average $700. That includes restaurants, your hotel and lodging, and all of your tours and whatnot.
Right.
In fact, a lot of the winery tours there can run from $50 to $100 for a tour. So as a price point in Napa, how does that compare to a price point in Kentucky?
Yeah, we're very attractive from that price point perspective. And our research shows that if you're here for the typical group spends between $500 to $1,200. So if they're doing $700 a day, you can see a little bit of that difference. But where Napa gets you is the wine club. Yeah. Which hopefully you guys pay attention in the news. We just passed some shipping legislation. We're now one of the reciprocal states. That to me is a monster that's sitting out there that we're just now gearing up to handle. Because the number one request of every one of our visitors is, hey, how do I get this on my plane back home? And so they want to be able to ship because they're buying so many of these amazing bottles. So that's how Napa gets you. You might go in for a $50, $75 tasting experience. You sign up for that club, you're not paying that. And so that's how, that's another opportunity I see that we're really gearing up for is the shipping beast. As more and more people come in, they need to get that stuff back home.
That'll be huge. That'll be huge. So branding and marketing is definitely a large component of creating a sense of place. How do we describe ourselves and how do we create that sense of place and then translate that to people to make them want to come? how is the Bourbon Trail branding itself, and what are your target markets?
That is the big question right now. Next year, we're going to take great advantage. We kept it kind of quiet. This year is our 20th anniversary. Next year, we turn 21. So we feel like that's a perfect opportunity for us to really celebrate Kentucky Bourbon Trail. So that question you just asked is one we're asking ourselves constantly. We have a whole strategic plan we're working on because, I mean, think about this, and I really want answers here because it'll make my job easier. When you think about bourbon, how do you describe it? You know, on one hand, I feel strongly it's kind of the everyman's drink. It's a great price point. It's an everyday drink. It's super versatile. But on the other hand, it's also a high-end drink as well. I mean, think of the different bottles that sit on your shelf at home that you're saving for a special occasion that are highly allocated, just beautiful bottles. So you have that whole spectrum, right? And think about the different occasions that you have bourbon. So how do you distill that into something that you market? And it's something that we're going through right now, and it's a huge project we're working on to really try to take advantage of when we turn 21 next year. So if you have answers, please send it our way because we are really wrestling with this, and it is part of our big program they're working on to really try to make Kentucky bourbon its own category in the marketplace. All of our members are working on this to be, what is that campaign that is like the Got Milk campaign, or name any of those out there. You know, we really want to separate Kentucky bourbon from the rest of the bourbons that are made in the United States. Those are all, I'm sure, fine products, but I think we all agree Kentucky bourbon is the gold standard. So how do we put that in a good message that our members can rally behind, Kentuckians are proud of, and really help separate us in the marketplace? So I am totally dodging your question.
Yeah,
because
you are.
Because I do think it is something that is very, very challenging that we're working on. So maybe if we come back next year, I'll have the answers for you.
I thought we were going to get an exclusive today. Oh, well.
That's why I was hoping you guys would start shouting out stuff for me.
Well, I appreciate your candor on that. So let's talk a little bit about the story of bourbon and how, you know, one thing that Napa has is this very strange, I did a little research on Napa. I don't know if you could tell, I have a bunch of notes. But I tried to figure out, okay, so where did Napa start? All right, who started Napa and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, it depends is the answer to that question, because it depends on what winery you go to, because every winery claims to be the first winery in Napa. And they all started back in 1836 or 1837 or 1835. So it's very convoluted. So their story really began back in 1975 and during the Paris tasting. They were pitted in a blind test, but Napa wines were pitted against Bordeaux and Burgundy wines and won back in 1976, first time ever. So everybody at that point wanted to know, where's Napa? What is Napa? You know, where's this place? And that's where Napa kind of got their mojo. So, I mean, bourbon's been around much longer than Napa wines. So where do we get our mojo?
Yeah, that is a very debated question. I tend to think of it as a good perfect storm of circumstances. I think a lot of credit needs to be given to on-premise. Well, in our industry, those are those bartenders that are out there making these great cocktails. We've heard about the cocktail culture, right? The Mad Men show effect. We've seen that take place not only kind of on-premise, but people trying to do those things at home. I think the Kentucky Bourbon Trail deserves some credit to a degree, and not just because I work there, but we've just seen so many people come through, and like I said, they are telling our story for us. That IQS research we did, they actually went back and kind of checked it because they said, you guys got 99% would recommend a tour to their friends and family. 99%. They thought something must be wrong. But when you have that kind of level of people buying into the experience that they had and telling their friends, just think about how that snowballs over the years, where we went from 6 or 7 stops in 1999 to where we're at 39 now. So, or close to 40, depending on some of our double stops. So those people going through, telling our story, I think is a big part. And I just think people have discovered that authentic, I know we talked about that term, often used too often, I think. But I think people have realized how special bourbon is to the United States, how versatile it is. I mean, how many of you guys, please raise your hand, put bourbon in your Bloody Mary? Yeah, get rid of the vodka. Vodka's the enemy. Okay, so you try next time with bourbon in there, and you'll thank me. If you remember anything from this talk, just remember that. But it just shows the versatility of those classic cocktails coming back. So you put all those things together, and the tremendous work our brands have done, and having some great products out there, I think it has become that perfect storm that's led to this bourbon boom that we see now, with the capital improvements, with the great visitor experiences that have been added on. And again, these law changes have been big, whether it's the vintage law change that allows Kentucky to be the place to come for those vintage bourbons, buy the drink, shipping. All of this has been combined to become what we're seeing now.
Yeah, and we actually have some episodic series on cocktail making coming to KentuckyTourism.com very soon. So we're running a little bit low on time, but I do want to take some questions. Sure. But before that, so what are next steps, I guess, for the Bourbon Trail? I mean, I know you're talking about next year and the big rebranding, or?
Well, just celebrating.
Celebrating, okay, let's say celebrating. Yeah. Okay, so obviously you're going to do that. But what are kind of the things that we need to look for? Maybe things that we can help with that are going to really enhance that sense of place in Kentucky for the Bourbon Trail?
I think a couple things come to mind immediately. Number one, the shipping is a big deal. It's big for our brands, it's big for our visitors. So that is a massive project we're undertaking, trying to get more reciprocal states right now. Again, Kevin can correct me, but I think we're at 9 or 10 reciprocal states right now, and we need that number to rise. If we start getting our big traffic states like Ohio, California, New York, Florida, that's I can't overstate how big that is for our industry. The second thing that we continue to really work very hard on is responsibility. You know, I've been up here talking about bourbon, but we need to make sure that's in a very responsible way. We have a full-time person in our office that's dedicated to that, and that involves, I made a joke earlier about Uber and Lyft, but that is a big part of making sure people are getting around responsibly. We have tremendous partners that we work with to get people around, whether it's Mint Julep Tours, Copperstone Tours, Bruce at Central Kentucky Tours. That not only helps our visitors, but it's making sure they're getting around in a very safe manner. We're working on white oak sustainability, environment. All of these things are ensuring long-term that the Kentucky Bourbon Trail and the Kentucky bourbon industry it remains in a healthy place to maintain this growth that we're seeing. So, and I think where you guys can help the most, as I talked about before, is the people aspect, the infrastructure of getting people in to help us in our industry, making sure they're very well trained, their bourbon IQ is high, and that's something that if we can help you with, just let us know. But that is something that we're constantly working with, is the people aspect of our industry.
Yeah. Well, and of course, we'll be a partner with you in the marketing of bourbon in Kentucky as we go forward. But I do want to take just a moment. If you all have any questions, please, I think the mics are hot. Feel free to ask away.
If you need more recipes, I'm up here.
Favorite bourbon? Hi, Kim.
I just wanted to ask, what are the opportunities for synergy with other tourism type things in the state of Kentucky. Obviously, we have a great tour program at Toyota as well, and I know there are so many different things that are being done in the state. You know, we had great exposure with Top Chef coming to Kentucky, and you know, some of the great things that I know Kristen Branscombe helped us with. So I wanted to just find out what other types of things are out there that the bourbon industry might be able to reach out and have that synergy with other tourism opportunities.
Well, I feel like, and we say this all the time in our office, the Kentucky Bourbon Trail and the Kentucky Bourbon Trail Craft Tour is the perfect kind of spine for your trip. So if there's other, and we do this all the time in our office, if there's other opportunities for you to visit the quintessential Kentucky things, we want to help promote that. So whether it's working with Horse Country, the other signature industry in the Commonwealth, we partner with them heavily. Whether it's other tours, and we work with a lot of the other DMOs throughout the state to help promote signature events, whether it's Kentucky Bourbon Festival in Bardstown, Bourbon Chase. You know, we're getting ready to go right next door to work the Bourbon Lodge at Fort Castle. So just communication with our office, if we can help in any way, we're here to serve, because so many people, yes, as I said, the demographics change of people coming more for the bourbon. We've really seen that change over the last 5-10 years. People still want those other quintessential Kentucky things, and we're here to help promote those.
Okay.
And KDA has been a great partner with Tourism Cabinet on both our domestic and our international marketing efforts. Internationally speaking, we're known for, obviously, horses. We're known for chicken, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and we're known for bourbon. So KDA has been a great partner with that. Good question. Thank you, Kim.
Hi, I'm Cindy Johnson from Pikeville.
Hi, Cindy.
And we're delighted that we're going to be included or are included on the Bourbon Trail, but we know we're an outlier. We're way out there. What can we be doing to help connect our portion of the Bourbon Trail to the rest?
With Dueling Barrels?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think, as we've seen, visitors want that entire hospitality experience, and you've obviously got the attraction there. It's what can you offer them? That's the dining. What can you offer in terms of the lodging? It's like packaging that in such a way, and that's really changed how we approach our visitors. We've really tried to add more of this kind of itinerary thing. We've really boiled things down to people because, I mean, and that's one advantage I do feel like the Kentucky Bourbon Trail has over Napa. I know when I researched the trip out there, I don't know how many of you guys have done that, it's almost overwhelming. I mean, like you said, there's 400 wineries. Well, where do I go? How do I do this? And I think that's been our advantage with the KBT is we've been able to really boil something down and then make it approachable for people. So I think if you can help us help them really come up with some kind of easy package, easy itinerary, hey, while you're in this area, here's what else you can do. That's what people have really wanted. And if you go on our new website, it's almost entirely directed to answer those questions. We have probably 9 different itineraries on there that I can think of, designed for any number of ways that people approach us, whether it's through outdoor recreation, which you guys also are a great partner on that.
Yes.
Whether it's through equine, whether it's through dining, whether it's through special events. So just help us package something together so it really, again, as I said, the distillery experience is kind of the core of why they're coming, but how do they fill out the rest of that in a way that meets their expectations?
And that's a conversation you guys need to have. But even above and beyond that, remember, it's not just the destination, it's the journey. And once people understand that and the beautiful vistas that you will see on your drive down to Pikeville, and I've driven there many times, it isn't just the destination, it's the journey to get there. So it's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good question. Any other questions? Well, I've really enjoyed our time together. I hope that everyone learned a little bit about, obviously, the Bourbon Trail. Any Bourbon Trail attractions that you want to give a shout out to that are in the
man.
Louisville area before they leave
Oh, okay.
that they should
Phew.
visit?
I was trying to keep my job there
We'll
for a
keep it.
second.
We'll keep it local.
Well, obviously, I want you guys to come out to the Bourbon Lodge at Forecastle. Hopefully, you guys are going out, enjoying some of the music there. I've obviously got to give a shout out to Rusty in the audience. There you are. Go down to Old Forester. Make sure you pick the day that they're firing the barrels. It's very cool that they have their own cooperage in there. I know Kevin's here, so make sure you do the tableside cocktail experience at the Urban Stillhouse. Check out one of our smaller guys, maybe Peerless, and if you want to expand your spirits horizon, go see Joe at Copper and Kings. I mean, I could be up here all day. I mean, you have so many opportunities in Louisville for great distillery experiences. So just pick your poison.
Awesome. Well, thank you all, and thank you, Adam. Appreciate your time.
There you go.